Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Fisher. I'm a communications lead with Levanta, the BFCC QIO for Medicare. I'm joined on the line by a couple of colleagues. Real briefly, I'll introduce each one of them. So I'm joined on the line tonight from our Las Vegas office by Gina Westfall, who has so graciously been working with the WellSpouse organization to help get this webinar available to all of you, working with Jerry and Bob to make this possible. Gina is my counterpart on the West Coast out there. She's a communications lead. But I think most critically for this audience, for all of you, Gina is a former Levanta patient advocate. And we're going to talk a bit more about what that means a little bit later on. Also joining us on the line tonight is our communications director, Lisa Novak. Lisa is, in addition to extensive experience in the quality improvement world in Medicare, Lisa is also a former provider. She worked in the healthcare industry for many years and is a nurse. So she brings a particularly excellent clinical expertise to our field. So just to go real quickly through what we'd like to cover tonight. So we're going to be talking about Medicare's BFCC QIO program. That's a lot of acronym there. Don't worry, we're going to explain all of it. And then we're going to talk about Levanta's role as a Medicare quality improvement organization. And then we're going to talk about how to access the services that we provide as a part of the QIO, or the Quality Improvement Organization program. And then we're just going to do a quick knowledge review to make sure that everyone is on the same page tonight. So I've been already bombarding you with a bunch of acronyms, so I apologize for that. It is kind of a government thing. We do like our alphabet soup. So most importantly, at the core of what we do is we are a quality improvement organization, a QIO. And the QIO is actually a really interesting government organization. Essentially the QIOs, and there are a couple different QIOs, they are the bridge between the healthcare provider community, the Medicare beneficiary, the patient and family community, as well as Medicare itself. And the goals of the QIO program, I think, are also really something that I wish more people knew about it, because our goals are to help improve the health of people, to provide better care, as well as to provide better care at a lower cost for Medicare beneficiaries. There are two types of QIOs. So Levanta is a BFCC QIO, or Beneficiary and Family-Centered Care QIO, Beneficiary and Family-Centered Care Quality Improvement Organization. The other type of QIO is a Quality Innovation Network. They have a slightly different mission, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. So what exactly is a BFCC QIO? So as I said, it is a Beneficiary and Family-Centered Care Quality Improvement Organization. And I think the name is somewhat self-explanatory. So we are focused on helping Medicare beneficiaries and their families access certain services and rights that are due to them as Medicare beneficiaries. So of the many things that we do for Medicare beneficiaries, the big three essentially are discharge appeal, complaints, and advocacy. So discharge appeal, in a nutshell, is if you are in an admitted type of status if you are in a hospital or in a skilled nursing facility, you have the right to appeal your discharge from that facility. You also have the right to file a complaint. And filing a complaint is not just limited to being in a hospital. If Medicare paid for the service, you have the right to file a complaint about that. If you feel you got bad care or incomplete care, or you are otherwise dissatisfied with your care, you absolutely have the right to file a complaint about that. And then finally, we also offer advocacy services. And we're going to talk in detail more about all three of those in just a minute. But it's important to remember that as a Medicare beneficiary or the caregiver of a Medicare beneficiary, you have the absolute right to access these services. These are not, you don't have to pay for these services. These come to you as a part of being a Medicare beneficiary. And so it doesn't matter whether you are a traditional Medicare patient, whether you have, or a traditional fee-for-service Medicare, like Part A, Part B, or if you have a Medicare Advantage plan. Regardless of how you receive your Medicare, you have the right to access these services. Make sure I'm in here. Trying to advance the slide here. Okay, so sorry about that, little technical glitch. So in addition to Levanta, there is another BFCC QIO, so you can see the map here in front of you. Levanta services 27 states and territories. So if you live in New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, DC, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Arizona, Nevada, California, or any of the Pacific states and territories, Hawaii, all the way out to American Samoa, you are going to be using Levanta as your BFCC QIO. There's another organization that's also a BFCC QIO. So if you live in New England, if you live in the Southeast, in the Southwest, as well as the Intermontane West and the Pacific Northwest, you will be using KeyPro for these services. There is no real difference in terms of the services that we provide. As I mentioned, all the services are your right as a Medicare beneficiary or the family member of a Medicare beneficiary. So it's just important to remember that the QIO that you will be calling to access these services is based on where the care took place. So, for example, if you live in, if you live in New York and you live close to the border with Connecticut, and the nearest hospital is in Connecticut, and you have an issue with the care you received there, then you would actually call KeyPro even though you live in New York. The care was received in Connecticut, which is serviced by KeyPro. So it's important to remember that the care is the QIO is based on where you received your health care. So Levanta has been in this field for quite some time. We were originally established in 2004, and then in 2014, on our 10th birthday, almost to the day, we were awarded a contract to serve as the BFCC QIO. From 2014 to 2019, we served as the BFCC QIO for a slightly different set of states than we service now. So as I mentioned, now we are the BFCC QIO for 27 states and territories across the country, which represents approximately 68% of the case review volume, or 68% of all Medicare beneficiaries in the United States rely on Levanta for these services. We have offices in the state of Maryland as well as in the state of Nevada. I am joining you tonight from our Baltimore office, so your colleague Jerry and I were having a good spirited discussion about the Orioles and the Red Sox. So we also have, as I mentioned, an office in Las Vegas, Nevada, and then we have satellite offices in Cleveland as well as in the Pacific Northwest. So all of the services that we provide are accessed telephonically, so you do not need to come into any of our offices. In fact, our offices are secure because of the medical records that we handle. So if you are a Medicare beneficiary or the family member or caregiver of a Medicare beneficiary, it's important to remember those big three services that I mentioned earlier. The biggest one that we handle are appeals. By far and away, it is the largest volume of cases that we handle are appeals. To give you an idea of the volume of cases that we handle over the last 5 years as the BFCC QIO, we handled about 400,000 cases. Of those 400,000 cases, almost 300,000 of them were appeals. So it's something that we do a lot. The other roughly 100,000 or so cases we had were complaints. So as I mentioned earlier, you have the right to complain about any care that you received that was reimbursed by Medicare. We have a kind of a silly saying around the office, and that's, we don't know what we don't know. And if you are not satisfied with the care you received, Levanta needs to know so we can do a review and determine if there were issues in you receiving your care. And then finally, the third of the big services that we offer is immediate advocacy. So immediate advocacy is something that we offer to all callers to Levanta. So if you call us, generally people, when they call us, they're not happy because they're calling to appeal their discharge or they're calling to complain. But we will offer them the opportunity to participate in immediate advocacy. And what that is we will have one of our staff members essentially try and mediate whatever is going on. So if you've got an issue about care you're currently receiving, you can ask for immediate advocacy. You can ask for immediate advocacy at any time. If you feel that you are not being treated fairly in your healthcare, in your healthcare, call us. A real common example, and I'm sorry to say it's common, but we hear it all the time. Folks are not getting their callbacks. They're calling and leaving a message to their doc, and 3 days goes by and they haven't heard back. So call us. We can call on your behalf and advocate for you. So we're going to talk a bit about each one of these cases a little bit more in depth. So first, we're going to talk about a potential appeal. So we have a patient here. So these examples are based off of real cases that we reviewed. So we have a patient here who's a 77-year-old female, and she is currently receiving care from a home health agency. So she's receiving care from a home health agency because she is recovering from surgery. So typically, knock on wood if it's never happened to you, but a lot of times you will have a home health nurse come and visit you when you come home from the hospital from recovering to help you recover from surgery. And as a part of that, so Mrs. Stevens was to have 1 week of home health services for wound care and another week, the same week for physical therapy. So you're noticing, as a caregiver, that your patient, Mrs. Stevens, is often losing her balance. She is, still very unsteady on her feet, and that the dressings for her wound are often missing, or they're soiled. So you think, okay, something is going on here. So what are your next steps? Okay, well, the next step is first, check the date on the Medicare notice. And we're going to talk about the Medicare notice a little bit more in detail later. But when you are discharged from a facility, whether that is a hospital, a skilled nursing facility, hospice, comprehensive rehab, when you are discharged from one of those facilities, you are required under law to receive certain notices from Medicare. And they are going to have the dates of your service. So when your service begins and when it ends. So make sure that that you are still within your that week. So you're before the discharge from home health. And then if you are still before the discharge, call us to file the appeal. And the way that process works is you will call us and we will begin the appeal process. We're going to talk a little bit more about how that works later. But I want to give you just a quick example of what an appeal might look like in this situation from home health. Case number 2 here is a case that is a complaint. So this is a patient, Mr. Alvarez, and last year he was in the hospital. And when he was in the hospital, he was being treated for high blood pressure. And what you find out is that when he got home, he was getting dizzy and he was passing out. And he said, I was taking so many pills, I didn't know what was going on. So what are the next steps? Call us, because there may have been an issue with the way his medication was handled. We can look at that. We can say, okay, what medications was he on? What was he taking? What were the dosages? Were there any issues with that? Were there any was a medication reconciliation performed to determine if there were any drug interactions? You have up to 3 years after the care you received to file a complaint. So it is really, you have plenty of time. So if you think back and say, okay, yeah, maybe there was an issue with the care that I received last year, 2 years, or even up to 3 years ago, you can still file a complaint. And we're going to talk a bit more about the process and what that looks like, and then the end result of that. So finally, let's take a look at an immediate advocacy case. So we have a patient here, Mrs. Price. She's 72 years old, and recently she changed primary care physicians. This happens to us all. You know, your old physician either retires or they go out of network, and now you've got to change primary care physicians. And so she was being treated for blood clots, and she recently received a new prescription. And she has questions about that new prescription, but she's calling the doctor's office and they're not responding. I mentioned that earlier. This is very, very typical, unfortunately. So what are the next steps? Call us and ask for immediate advocacy. As a Medicare beneficiary or the caregiver of a Medicare beneficiary, you have the right to access these services. So if something is going wrong with your care, call us and we can try and mediate that for you. And as I said, anyone can ask for immediate advocacy at any time. So you don't need to necessarily be calling us with an appeal or with a direct complaint. You can call us and ask for immediate advocacy at any time. So some important things to remember about the appeal. So first and foremost, every single appeal is unique. Now, what do I mean by every appeal is unique? Well, everyone has got different situation, a different situation that they are appealing their discharge from. So whether, you could be in the hospital, you could be in home health, you could be hospice or comprehensive rehab or skilled nursing facility. All of these are different types of facilities, different levels of care. Also depends on how you're receiving your care. Are you receiving your care through traditional Medicare, or are you Medicare Advantage plan holder? What day of the week did you file? What time of the day did you file? Because your provider has to then provide the records to us. So each case is unique, and that's why we say that there is a window, a 24-hour to 72-hour window for us at Levanta or KeyPro to perform your case review. So what does the case review feel like? So what happens is when you or your caregiver calls Levanta and says, okay, I'm in the hospital, I got my discharge notice, it says here that I should call you if you think I'm not ready to go home. Okay, so we've got it. We'll make sure, so we'll call your hospital and we'll say, okay, we need to verify the patient is still there. We need to verify the dates and times of service. Okay, she's still admitted. We're going to go ahead and order the appeal to be, order the discharge to be stayed at that time. So we're going to tell your hospital, okay, Mrs. Johnson has filed an appeal, and so you don't send her home until we review that appeal. And at that point, we will request the medical records from the hospital, and then we will assign those to one of our physician reviewers. Our physician reviewers are all licensed practicing doctors. They're all board certified. They see patients actively, and they review cases for us. And so what we will do is we will then assign them the medical record. They will look at it, and the determination that they will make is whether or not the decision to discharge was appropriate. And that is the only thing that they are going to determine. So they're going to say, okay, was the patient ready for discharge? Yes or no. And then once they reach that determination within 24 to 72 hours, we will then call the provider, we'll call the hospital, and then we will call the beneficiary or their representative and explain what the physician reviewer found. So those calls are typically handled by nurses, so they can help explain some of the medical stuff that's going on. In the letter, they will explain that to you, say, okay, here's what happened. The doc agreed with your attending physician, with the hospital, that yes, you are ready. Here's why we agreed, or here's why we disagreed. And then we will go from there. We'll also follow up with a hard copy of that letter mailed to your address of record. So I mentioned a few minutes ago, you are required under law to receive certain notices from Medicare. The big notices that you hear, the big four that you see here on the screen in front of you. The most common notice is what we call the important message for Medicare, or the IM. The IM is given to you when you are getting ready to be discharged from a hospital. And so the IM, you can see here, it's got information. It's got your patient information on here, but critically, it has the information on how to call the QIO, or in this case, how to call Levanta. So it'll say, okay, you're right to appeal this decision. You call the QIO. It has our name and phone number on it. So again, if you're in this situation, you need to make sure that this form is filled out correctly. Make sure that it says Levanta if you're in one of our states, or make sure it says KeyPro if you are in one of KeyPro's states. The other form that you may see is what's called the Notice of Medicare Non-Coverage. This is a form that's given when you are about to be discharged from a care setting that is something other than a hospital. So skilled nursing, comprehensive rehab, home health, or hospice is going to give you the Notice of Medicare Non-Coverage. These are essentially very similar forms. They do similar things. They tell you how to file your appeal or how to file a complaint. When you choose to file an appeal, you will receive what we call the detailed notice. And the detailed notice is, again, this is required. So if your provider does not give this to you, you need to let us know. But the detailed notice is a written explanation of why the facility chose to discharge you from their care or from that particular level of care. So this form is used by both Levanta and our review, and it's designed to try and explain to the patients and beneficiaries and their family members exactly why they were being discharged from hospital or from the other care setting. So as I mentioned, to begin your appeal, you need to call us. I understand it's 2019, but unfortunately we can't take the appeals by email. You do need to do need to call us. I would love to be able to do it by text, but you can't do that. So you do have to call us, but don't worry, you'll speak to a real person. We have a really excellent intake center. They are absolutely awesome. And so when you call to file your appeal, an important thing to remember, anyone may file the appeal on behalf of the beneficiary. So whether you are a direct relative or some other kind of caregiver, you can call and file the appeal. The call center is open weekdays from 9 to 5 and weekends and holidays from 11 to 3. And that is during whatever local time you are calling from. So we're like Jake from State Farm. We're kind of always there. So if you're calling us from Hawaii, we're going to be able to talk to you. If you do happen to call us outside of business hours from where you are calling from, then you can leave us a voice message. Your voice message is timestamped. So for example, if you think, oh my gosh, I need to get my appeal in, I'm running out of time, call us, leave a voice message. Your appeal will be timestamped, and we'll make sure that you're still in under the wire. If you do choose to leave us a voicemail, which you can do at any time, if you call us and you don't want to wait to talk to someone, you can just leave us a voicemail. We'll call you right back. If you do leave us a voicemail, please leave as much information as possible. So please make sure you give us a direct callback number. That usually is a cell phone number. It's not always helpful when people leave us like the phone, like the main line for the hospital, and then you have to figure out what room that person is in, and maybe they move rooms. A direct callback number is going to be the most useful piece of information, and we will call you right back. Same thing, to file a complaint, you do need to call us. We can't take the complaint over email. You do need to call us. And the complaint, however, does need to be completed by the beneficiary or a designated representative of the beneficiary. So we reviewed, a typical complaint, which was, like a medication mistake. But another complaint we hear a lot of, unfortunately, is that folks, did not have an adequate or a missing discharge meeting. When you're getting sent home from hospital, sometimes they just fling the papers onto your chest and walk out the door. Obviously, that's not acceptable. We need to know about, if that's happening. If you're not clear about what you're supposed to do when you leave that facility, call us and we will help set that up. Or, if unfortunately, you picked up another condition in the hospital and they didn't treat you for that, we do need to know about that. Really, if there's any care that you receive that you consider substandard, we need to know about it so we can review those cases on your behalf. Similarly, as I mentioned, only the beneficiary or their representative can file a complaint. Same thing with the appeals. The call center is open 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, 11 to 3 on weekends and holidays, and then you can leave us a voicemail 24 hours a day. The complaint also has a written portion that is required, and so the way that works is actually, so you call in, you'll explain, okay, this thing happened to me, I want to file a complaint, and we'll say, okay, give us your address, and we will actually mail you the forms to fill out, and then you can mail that back into us, and then we will review the complaint. And just like the appeals process, it'll be assigned to one of our physician reviewers, one of our doctors, who will review that case to determine if there were medical issues there. So the big difference, though, is that complaints take a lot longer to review. They take between 30 and 45 days for us to complete a review, and that's typically because there's a lot of documentation that our doctors have to look at. They want to get to know everything that's happening and that happened. But it's important for you all to remember that this is a really important part of Medicare's quality improvement infrastructure. If we are not aware that there are problems, we have to assume that everything is okay. And if there are problems, please speak up, please be heard, let us know so we can review them. The complaint process is non-punitive, so we are really out to improve the quality of healthcare. And the idea behind the way that this works is that if you let us know about something bad that happened to you, we will work with the provider, we will identify that issue, and that may help to prevent mistakes in the future. But it's also really important to remember that you should never fear retaliation. Because we're not punitive. This is not going to affect a provider's ability, to deliver care. And if you feel that way, you can always call us and ask for immediate advocacy, and we will speak up for you. But you should never, ever fear retaliation for speaking up. The QIO is here for you. We are here at your service to help identify any issues that you may have faced. Now, I mentioned way back at the beginning, and just a second ago, the immediate advocacy process. So essentially, the big difference between immediate advocacy and filing a complaint is that a complaint has to be after the fact. So, okay, yeah, I was in the hospital last week, last month, and this thing happened to me. Immediate advocacy is, okay, I'm still receiving care. My doctor's not returning my phone calls. I was supposed to have a set of crutches delivered to my house and they never showed up. And these are things that are currently plaguing me, and I would like some help with resolving them. And again, you have absolutely the right to call us anytime that you are not satisfied with the care you are receiving and ask for advocacy, ask for immediate advocacy. Again, you do have to call us. We can't take this by email. You do have to call us and start the conversation. Each case is resolved within a few days typically, and if we can't resolve it, then we will roll that over into a complaint. But one of the things that is unlike the appeal or the complaint, you do have to agree to participate in immediate advocacy. So we will say, okay, would you like us to advocate for you? And if you say yes, then we will go ahead and do that for you. But again, you do have to call us. Same thing, call the helpline. It's Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and then weekends and holidays, 11 to 3. And again, you can always leave us a voicemail. So now I want to talk real quickly about some things that we have on offer for you. So if any of you are like me, when you buy something from Amazon, you obsessively track it within the Amazon app. You love clicking that button, where's my stuff? Or maybe I'm just a little unhinged, but I love knowing exactly where everything is at any given time. So because of that, we were the first quality improvement organization, the first QIO in the country to develop a tracking tool for your case. So when you have a case with Levanta, whether that is an appeal or a quality, a complaint, you get a case number from us that you can track. You can just go onto our website, click the check my case icon, put your case number in, and you'll immediately be able to see exactly what the status of your case is 24 hours a day. You don't have to use any kind of logins or anything like that because there's no private health information displayed. The case number, as far as anyone is concerned, is just a bunch of numbers. It doesn't mean anything. So what you see here, from the screen, doesn't have your name. It doesn't even have, it has no information about it except what the status of your case is. This system we call Arrow is connected live to our database. So 24 hours a day, you can go onto our website, put in your case number, and see exactly where the status of your case is at that moment. Now, we recently added that feature to our app. So yes, there is an app for that now. So Levanta created a smartphone app a couple of years ago, and it's grown. So originally it was just a speed dial app that was meant to replace the old school refrigerator magnets that everyone used to have. My refrigerator, I got one of those new ones a few years ago. Nothing sticks to it. It's stainless steel. I wish they told me that. I have all these cool magnets I can't use anymore. But it replaced the old refrigerator magnet. But we thought, okay, well, while we have it here, why don't we add features? So we started hearing direct feedback from both patients as well as healthcare providers, and everyone said, why can't I track my case directly in the app? And we said, yeah, that's a really good question. We got our development team here at Levanta to add that feature into the app. The app is, of course, free to use and it's free to download, and we just recently released an update to the app. So if you thought you were getting out of this without any homework, you have been unfortunately, sadly mistaken. So I am a former teacher and the son of teachers, so I love to give out homework. So I do have a quick assignment for you. So if you're not already on your phone, on your smartphone or your tablet, take it out. And then if you are on an Android device, open up the Google Play Store, and if you are on an Apple, an iPhone, or an iPad, open up the App Store, and then you're going to search for the word Levanta, L-I-V-A-N-T-A, Levanta. And yes, we pronounce it Levanta. We're all kind of a lot of us are from the middle of the country, so we talk through our noses a little bit, so we call it Levanta. So search for the word Levanta, and you will see the little icon. There will be a little H with little headphones on it. And then you're going to download and install the app and give it a try. And we are all type A people. We thrive on feedback. So tell us if the app is working. Tell us if it's not working. Tell us if you think it's useless. Tell us if you think it's very useful. We need to know so we can improve the app and we can make it a better experience for you and make it a more useful tool for you. So please give it a try. If you can rate it on the iTunes, or excuse me, they don't call it that anymore, the App Store or the Google Play Store, we'd appreciate that. But more importantly, if you want to email us direct feedback on the app, we would certainly appreciate that almost as much, if not more. So now to review, what is a QIO? So a QIO is a quality improvement organization, and a QIO is a government contractor that ensures quality protection for Medicare patients and families. So we are, as I said, a government contractor that is out to protect your rights as a Medicare beneficiary and to ensure that you receive high quality health care. Medicare is something that we all participate in, and we pay into it over the course of our whole lives with the expectation that when we need it, it will be there. And if something is not right, we need to know about it. So the QIO program is your protection as a Medicare beneficiary or the caregiver of a Medicare beneficiary. So next question, what are the services that we provide as a BFCC QIO? We provide services for appeal review, complaints, and immediate advocacy. Just remember those big three. If you are in a position where you don't want to leave a facility, that's an appeal. If you're in a hospital, a hospice, a comprehensive rehab facility, a home health or skilled nursing facility, and you're not ready to leave, call us and file that appeal. Call us, call your QIO and file that appeal. So if you're in one of Levanta's states, you'll call us. If you're in one of KeyPro states, you'll call them. But call your QIO if you are not ready to leave that facility. If you have a complaint about the care you received, call us and file a complaint, and we will review it for you. And if you are dissatisfied with the care you are receiving, present tense, call us and ask for immediate advocacy. So appeals, complaints, and advocacy. Those are the main, the big three things that we provide for Medicare beneficiaries. And finally, how much do we charge for all of this? All of our services are 100% free to use. They are your right as a Medicare beneficiary or the caregiver of a Medicare beneficiary. You have the right to appeal, you have the right to complain, and you have the right to advocacy. This is codified under federal law. You have the absolute right to access these services, and they are provided to you as a Medicare beneficiary, regardless of how you receive your Medicare, whether it is through traditional Medicare or a Medicare Advantage plan. You have the right to access these services. You have the right to appeal, you have the right to complain, and you have the right to advocacy. And none of those will ever cost you anything. They are part and parcel of your Medicare, which is something that you have paid into your whole lives and are now accessing. So before we begin the Q&A session, I just want to bring your attention to a couple of parting thoughts. So I have talked a whole lot, and I apologize for that, but if you would actually like more information when your dose of Brian Fisher has worn off, you can go to our website and get more information. We have a state-based page, so if you just click on your state, you can see a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of resources for your state. And then more importantly, it's really, really important that you take control of your health care. This is your health care. This is your life. You have the right to these services. It's important that you ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I had this discussion with my mom several times. You know, she is of that generation. She's also Japanese, so Japanese people do not complain. And, you know, she's always, yes, doctor, yes, doctor, yes, doctor. And I asked her, Mom, did you understand what he said? And she said, no. I'm like, well, my God, Mom, ask him. You know, and I end up having to ask. So you take control of your health care. Help expand your health literacy. There are no dumb questions. Ask questions. The doctor is going to be happy to provide that information to you. So ask for more information. Check out our website and access those state-based resources that we have for you on the website. Ask for help. If you are not certain about what's happening to you, ask someone for help. Call us, call Levanta, call your QIO, ask your doctor, ask your nurse, ask your neighbor. Never be afraid to ask for help. As I mentioned, you know, like I'm a former educator and my parents are former educators. We thrive on questions. And I know a lot of people aren't the same way, but it's okay to ask for help. You know, I'm dealing with a situation with a neighbor, and he experienced some very serious complications from a surgery. And I wish he had asked for help. I live in an urban environment. We're all living on top of one another. We see each other every day. And if he had asked for help, they would not have had to come get him out of the house in an ambulance 2 weeks ago, and he would not be in physical therapy right now. So ask for help. You never know who is going to be able to help you. Your discharge planners are going to be a great source of information. So again, that's their job. They're there to provide that information for you. Ask your discharge planner if you're in an inpatient setting. Ask them for help and say, hey, you know, like, I got a broken wrist. I'm going home tomorrow. I can't cook. How am I supposed to get my meals? Where they're going to have information about how to get Meals on Wheels or other meal services. They're going to have all that information, but it's important that you ask, because if you don't ask, they're going to assume that everything's okay. Again, if you're not comfortable with that, you can always call us, call the QIO, call our helpline, and get more information, and we might be able to connect you up with something. But again, it's important to remember that all of the services that we provide are free to use. If you are ever needing help with something with Medicare, just give us a call, ask for immediate advocacy, and at the very least, we can point you in the right direction. So regarding where you live, there are different phone numbers because we operate in different time zones. So, and we'll make sure that you guys have a copy of all this information. But if you live in New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and Virgin Islands, your phone number is going to be 866-815-5440. I'm not going to go through and read all of these because we're going to be here until 10 o'clock tonight. So the phone numbers are here for your information. You can always go to our website, which is LevantaQIO.com. The website obviously is accessible 24 hours a day. Click on what state you live in, and that will give you the phone number to call. If you speak a language other than English, if you are more comfortable in that language, we provide free foreign language interpretation services. So whether you speak Afrikaans or you speak Yiddish, it doesn't matter. We will be able to translate whatever language you speak. We have a service that provides translations into over 200 languages. So that is not going to be a barrier to using these services. If you would like to have more information regularly from us, please follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So if you are on any of those social media platforms, we would love to see you there. We provide information pretty much on a very regular basis. And you can, again, always go to our website, LevantaQIO.com. So at this point, I am going to turn things over to my colleagues, Lisa and Gina, to handle the Q&A session because they know way more than I do. So also going to take a sip of water. So thank you all for your patience with me this evening, and I hope you have some good questions and you can play a good game of Stump the Experts. Jerry, did you want to open the lines?
Sorry, I'm talking to mute. We have one question from Bob Mastro Giovanni. Bob Mastro, so I'm going to unmute his line right now. So, Bob, your line is open. You may ask your question.
Thank you, Jerry. I think one of the things that we find most often is when someone is getting their service cut off, typically it's like PT. You know, they'll say, well, you can't get any better. We've gone as far as we can go with you. You can't improve anymore. We're going to cut off your PT. Many of our patients are chronically ill. And if they don't get ongoing PT, sometimes they may not be able to improve because they have a chronic condition, but they could get a hell of a lot worse. So it's that kind of thing, the cutting off of the services. Would that be for immediate advocacy? I mean, is that something we should get right on?
Yes, Bob, this is Gina. And this is something actually we spoke about at the conference in Las Vegas, but for everyone who was not there, I think this is really important to touch on. There are basically two types of physical therapy that people receive when they're in a care facility. One of them is goal-oriented. So, for example, if you broke your leg and you have surgery for the surgical repair, you're sent to rehab afterward. At the beginning of your rehab, the therapist will do an assessment and say, okay, you're going to need 4 weeks of therapy, and then he's going to come up with a treatment plan. And in the treatment plan, every week, there's going to be goals that he wants you to meet as a patient as you go through therapy. So first week, you should be able to start walking with a walker, one person assisting you. And then it goes on from there in increments as you gain your strength back. There's another type of therapy, and this is the kind of therapy that helps you maintain whatever strength you have remaining following a surgery, or if you're, say if you've had a stroke and your functionality is compromised. You're not going to take therapy to run a marathon with the expectation that you're going to have the strength to do that. It's to help you maintain whatever strength level you have and to prevent you from deteriorating. So, for instance, if you're able to, following your illness or, within the parameters of your medical condition, if you're able to sit up in a wheelchair and maybe stand on a walker with some assistance, unless you have that continued therapy, it's going to be a very quick descent to where you're completely bedbound. You can't use a wheelchair, you can't stand up on your own. And so it's called restorative therapy. That is the therapy that immediate advocacy can help you get. So usually what the physical therapy departments will do is when they talk to the family, they'll say, okay, you're not, you've gotten everything that you can from therapy and you've plateaued. Does that sound familiar?
Yes,
Plateau is plateau is a big word that they use. So they'll say you plateaued, you're not benefiting from therapy. Well, that may be the case where you're not going to get to a point where you are going to be 100%, the same 100% level of strength that you were 20 years ago. However, you still need therapy to maintain your strength. So what you do is first of all, you talk to your case manager or your discharge planner and say, I want to schedule a care plan meeting. That's a meeting where your doctor, the physical therapist, the discharge planner, and your nurse will all be present. And you say in that meeting, and this is your right to do this, by the way, they want to understand what challenges you're anticipating. When you have that meeting, you tell them, okay, therapy needs to continue or there's going to be loss of functionality and deterioration. And if a Medicare patient has a chronic condition or a condition that is progressively deteriorating, they have the right to have that type of therapy. So you have the care plan meeting, you make your providers aware of it, and if there is no satisfaction and that type of therapy has not been approved, you call Levanta, and then this is a case for immediate advocacy.
Thank you, Gina. I think that's it's very common. I think a lot of people with MS or Parkinson's or stroke, they could actually develop contractures and loss of functionality and even pain. We've heard of people developing severe pain because they cut off their PT. So this is a very, very common problem. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to mute Bob's line again. And Russell Weiner has a question. Actually, he sent a message saying he's got several questions, so I'm going to unmute his line, and he will speak next. I can't unmute his line. Oh, you're self-muted. So, Russell, if you can unmute your phone, you can talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Go ahead.
Right.
With your question.
The first question was just a follow-up on with Bob's question. Is that the case also for outpatient therapy, physical therapy?
Yes. You have to. There's a number that you can call, and you can get the number from either your discharge planner while you're in the hospital, or you can actually get it from your Medicare card directly. There's a number called, it's the Medicare helpline, the talk line. So you call them and you find out, they're going to ask you what your member number is, which is listed on the front of the card. They're going to check your coverage and your benefits. They're going to tell you exactly what you are covered for. And then once you have that information, you can have that conversation with your therapist.
I already know all of that. That isn't the question. The question is, do you, as Levanta, can I access that help regarding Medicare physical therapy as an outpatient?
Lisa?
I'm not sure if my audio is working. Can you hear me okay?
It is.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think the answer to that question is, again, going back to, is Medicare paying for that service? So if
Yes.
Medicare Part B is covering your outpatient therapy, then absolutely you can call Levanta and at the very least ask for immediate advocacy, and somebody can help look into that medical record with you.
Right. So like Jimmo issues, exactly. So we can call you if
Right. So
a practice wants to discharge, and my wife, for example, has MS and needs continuous physical therapy. And I've gotten a runaround from one of the hospital outpatient clinics regarding that. They keep wanting to discharge her and then readmit her a month or two later.
right, right. So again, if Medicare is paying for the care, then that's something that, you know, as a beneficiary, we can review that case.
Okay. The other question that I had regarding discharge, what percentage of appeals are successful for the patient?
Brian, are you able to tackle that one?
Yeah, so you're not gonna like to hear this, but it's about 10% are successful for the patient.
Well, that's higher than I expected. That's pretty good. And what information do you require, or what information help builds a successful case?
So the cases are built upon the merits of the medical record. So our physician reviewer has to review what is submitted by the provider. So if there is additional information that you would like to submit, you're welcome to do that. So if you would like to say, okay, I would like to make sure, if you're talking to your provider and say, I would like to have the medical records for not just this day, but the previous day sent as a part of the medical records, you can do that. If you would like also to fax over to us what we call like a patient statement, saying, okay, here is my direct rationale for why I am appealing this discharge, you can certainly do that as well. So as much information as you want to provide to us, again, it does have to be faxed. We can't receive that by email. Email is insecure.
Right.
You can fax that information over to us, but ultimately it's going to be built on whatever documentation we receive from the provider.
Okay, and last question is regarding the complaints. I understand the benefit of the complaints to the system as far as you'll be able to determine the quality of care that's being provided, but for the individual who's filing the complaint, is there any impact on their ability to further essentially start a lawsuit against the provider?
So the answer to that is the information that we provide as a part of the complaint. So what happens is when you say, okay, here's my complaint, and we say, okay, here is our finding, we'll write everything up for you and produce that in a letter and send that to you. Unfortunately, that letter cannot be used as the basis of a lawsuit. That would need to be pursued externally.
Right. Okay. So essentially, but there's no harm in utilizing Levanta in order to get that information. But if you wanted to file a suit, that would be completely separable.
That is correct. That would be outside of our jurisdiction.
Okay.
An important thing to remember about filing a quality of care complaint, these complaints are issues that should be able to be resolved or investigated on the basis of what's in the medical records. So just for example, if somebody says, oh, that nurse didn't like me and she purposely didn't come in my room at night when I needed to go to the bathroom, or she treated me very poorly while I was in the hospital. Obviously, that's not something that's going to be charted in your medical record that we can review. So it's going to have to be something that is documented in the medical records, and that is the basis for our investigation. Because when a quality of care complaint is filed, the first thing that we will do is to get a copy of your medical records. and then go through everything to make sure that what you're telling us is substantiated in the medical records, and then we can go from there.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, did that make sense? Because it's important to know that our purpose in doing the quality of care investigations is to identify what the issue was, why you didn't receive quality of care, and then work with the providers to ensure that, that's a mistake that isn't replicated. We want to improve your quality of care. Yeah. Okay.
Right, and there's a difference between an individual suit and collecting mass data as far as quality of care and how you'd use the information. So I just wanted to make sure there wasn't an inherent conflict.
Okay.
And if you say if a hospital provided the wrong medication to a patient and that patient ended up having a heart attack due to that, that would be something that you might want to sue for. It might also be something that you guys would want to look at this if a hospital is routinely providing the wrong medication.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you. It was very interesting.
Welcome.
Okay, is that it, Russell?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, anybody else have any comments besides Bob? Okay, if you could just raise your hand. If not, Ruby Moore has one, so I'm going to mute Russell and unmute Ruby.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, Ruby. Go ahead with your question.
Hello. I was just wondering, as far as being discharged from the hospital or skilled rehab facility, if somebody is no longer meeting the qualifications to remain there and they're recommending home health, PT, OT, or an aide, what happens if that is not available in the area that you're living in due to like rural areas? Are there other options, or can you try to stay in the hospital or a skilled rehab for a longer period of time due to those issues and lack of resources?
Okay, so when this is why it's really important to have a dialogue with your providers, including your discharge planner. In some facilities, the discharge planner is the same person as your case manager. Not always, but sometimes. So the reason that you want to have, again, what's called a care plan meeting, when you get your notice, and you can even do this before you get a notice, because as soon as you enter the hospital staff has set up a treatment plan, and part of the treatment plan is your discharge plan. That begins from when you first enter the hospital. So you should think in terms of, okay, I have to start thinking about what happens after discharge if I'm not well enough to go home, or if services are not available. I want to have a strategy in place. The best way to do that is to ask your case manager or the discharge planner to schedule a care plan meeting that will be with your doctor and with someone from every discipline that's treated you. So it will be a physical therapist if you had therapy while you were there, the nurse, your case manager, and the discharge planner. In that meeting, that is your platform to tell them all your concerns about any challenges you're anticipating after discharge. So if there's not services or facilities that are available in your area, there are resources available that are going to help you find what is available that will be able to help you. So one of the things you can do is go to our website. You can click on your state and find out resources that are available. Another excellent thing to do, besides calling us immediately, which is always the best choice, you can call the Agency on Aging, and that's going to be in that's in every state. and you tell them what the situation is, they will assign a case manager to you for free, and they're going to help you find the resources and services and care that's going to be close to you within your community. But the best thing to do is, the easiest thing to do, call Levanta, use the phone app, or shoot us an email, however you need to get in touch with us, and we can help you with that.
Okay, I guess in this particular area that I'm talking about, all of those things have been tried, and there just is not the resources available in the area. So it's kind of like the hospitals in a very hard spot because you're ready for discharge, but the area doesn't have the skilled rehab services outside of the hospital available. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's difficult.
This is Lisa. We certainly can appreciate that. Brian mentioned when he was talking about the discharge appeals that no two appeals cases are alike. And, that could be, one example where, depending on where somebody lives, the discharge, may need to look different. And so we would just really strongly encourage you to make use of our helpline in those cases so that, we're aware and we're helping and advocating on your behalf.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ruby. Is there anybody else that has a question? Okay, I know Bob would like to have a moment. So if there's nobody else, I will unmute Bob's line. Hey, Bob, your line is open.
Thanks, Jerry. And I wanted to thank Brian and Gina and Lisa from Livanta. I think it's been a very great program. I think it was very informational. I think it gave us a lot of practical things, and I don't think everyone knows about Livanta until someone sticks a piece of paper in front of you when you're leaving the hospital that has Livanta's name on it. That's usually the first time anyone knows anything about it. And so I wanted to thank you for presenting this webinar for us. And we have on the line tonight a lot of people. Some are WellSpouse members and some are members of the public. And I just wanted to encourage you all to take a look at wellspouse.org. That's WELLSPOUSE.org. That's our website. And don't hesitate to go to wellspouse.org. And we have different types of membership, different levels of membership. We have a digital membership. We have a full supporting membership. And if you don't want to join, if you're not a caregiver of a spouse and you don't want to join, there's a spot for you too. We always ask for donations. So please keep WellSpouse in mind as well. I want to thank everyone for participating. I think it was very educational. And I know that Jerry, Jerry, I wanted to thank you for putting this on. And I know that Jerry and our webmaster, Al, are going to archive this and put it on our website, wellspouse.org, for future reference. And that's it's free. You don't have to be a member. You can go to our website and look at the archived webinars. There are several on there already. So please keep WellSpouse in mind. And I want to thank everyone and say good night.